I want to go into then is some information on shakemic acid and pine needles. Okay, so we talked about the pine needles, but why is shakemic acid so important? So I'll kind of tie this into the coffee because it directly connects. So as we've talked about, 97% of the coffee out there in the world is sprayed with pesticides. Obviously, there's different pesticides. There's at least 42 that are commonly used on coffee. Glyphosate is everywhere, in the water and the food supply just generally. But what happens with glyphosate, why it's so dangerous and why people, why the alarms have been raised around glyphosate is because it is turning off a gene called the P53 gene. And this pathway, they actually call it the guardian of the genome because of what it does to protect the cells and literally protect, really the DNA within us. So it's that important. But glyphosate mimics the glycine amino acid, and then literally is able to turn this pathway off, P53. There's a lot of really fascinating stuff that we can talk about with that. But the point is, we really do want to limit our pesticide exposure for all the obvious reasons, but specifically also for what it's doing to P53. And this relates directly to shakemic acid. So shakemic acid is a biological pathway that takes place in all plants and certain bacteria. And it's a 7-step metabolic pathway used by bacteria, archaea, fungi, algae, some protozoans, and plants for the biosynthesis of folates and aromatic amino acids. So it's literally a crucial process to life itself on this planet, shakemic acid. We need this. And this shakemic pathway is dependent on shakemic acid, and having it in the diet and getting enough of it to actually restore the pathway if needed. Because again, glyphosate actually shuts this pathway down too, okay? So it's really, really important as to what the shakemic pathway is. And this is why people have GI issues often with glyphosate, like stomach issues, autoimmune, a lot of different things, because it's interrupting the gut and the gut microbiome. But with shakemic acid, which is abundant in the pine needles, like we've talked about, I'll just show this real quick. The pine needle extract, shakemic acid is abundant in pine needles, Michael. And so what happens then is when we consume the pine needles, we're getting an abundance literally of the shakemic acid. And this is helping with so many different things. So it's involved in the production of many different compounds like serotonin, melatonin, melanin, epinephrine, dopamine, thyroid hormone, folate, and CoQ10. So very, very important as to what's going on with our pesticide usage, the toxins all around us, and then the fact that pine needles have shakemic acid in it. So, if we can get that in the diet, we're literally helping all the different microorganisms and bacteria in our body because they need that as well.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They just want to clean everything out. But no, we have to have that certain flora, bacterial flora that's in our systems that is beneficial, that helps us. It helps us digest food and helps us fight off the negative side too, the negative bacteria. So it is very important to keep that fauna, flora, whatever going and keep it healthy. And that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something that you're not going to see shakemic acid as a nutrient that's needed, let's say per se, by government guidelines. But because of the state of the world and just how much pesticides have been used over the past several decades, the toxicity everywhere, you literally could argue that shakemic acid is a necessary nutrient to get in the diet. And I find this very fascinating. We know, how abundant pine needles and pine trees are in this world, Michael. So nature, God, source, has created so many pine trees for us to help literally feed us this shakemic acid. Of course, the other compounds in there too, but specifically this shakemic acid. So I really, sort of connected that dot of it's this important to life itself and the processes of life, and it's found in the pine needles so abundantly, and the pine trees are everywhere. Now, there are only certain species that you can get this from of the pine. The one that we have obviously is one. It's the white pine species, and this is part of the whole situation that we've been going through. Of we need to detox, we need to support the cardiovascular system because we continue to see people just dropping over. That's clearly not normal. And if we can support healthy blood viscosity and the circulation of the blood, then we help the cardiovascular system.
Very nice, very nice. And the pine pollen is really good. I put it in my teas. I put it in my smoothies. It's great. It's basically one of those things we talk about that makes a massive difference going forward. So pine needle extract is a lot easier to take under the tongue. I put it under the tongue and hold it there for a little bit. But it also, like you're saying, naturally occurring shakemic acid. So it's definitely one of those functions that we need within our system, especially now.
Yeah. Well said, Michael. Thank you very much. So there's a little photo of the coffee for those who haven't seen the coffee. And I've got it right here as well. But then the other thing that I wanted to talk about too a little bit more, Michael, is the algae. And I brought in some new information as to the quantum aspects of this. So I'm going to read, it's a little